Hey, good day and welcome to my channel. And today, in a continuing series of highlighting obscure steam valves, what we have here on the bench is a Butler Pierce valve. That is the mark of the Butler Pierce company. Sort of very stylized piece surrounded by a laurel wreath, befitting a company that was founded in 1839 when Queen Victoria was just beginning her reign and lasted into the 30s, pretty much finished off by the Great Depression. We have a patent date there of December the 5th, 1911, and if anybody can help me track down the patent number, the actual patent drawings of this, I'd sure appreciate it. There were like 749 patents issued that day, and grinding through them has been a tedious task. So, got this valve off a radiator on the eastern shore of Maryland, and I was trying to get it apart to see if there was any way that I could fix it or come up with a solution of replacement without taking and replacing every single valve. So one of the first things we did is I had my son copy out the handle, easy cheesy, typical 20s lever style. And this nut comes off, fairly straightforward. The handle comes off, revealing the broaching. I said, there we go, finally, there's the broaching. The broaching is very, very stiff. It requires a little dressing up to make this work. This does not want to come off easily at all or go on properly. Sometimes I dress this up with a very fine needle file. Let's see if we can get let's see if we can get a good focus on there. I'm afraid not. I'm not going to get that today, but it's pretty rough. So that takes care of that. And then there is a small nut holding on the bezel plate. The bezel plate reads Syracuse packless valve. That may be a rebranded unit, because it definitely is a Butler Pierce, so Syracuse is whatever that is. And then we've got this packing nut on there, and that generally comes off fairly straightforward. No problem there. And we've got this, and what's normally here, unlike almost every other valve that has a packing on it, the packing is there, and the spring, which this is a spring-loaded packing, is underneath, which is highly unusual. So this pushes up, and the packing is supposed to be here, which is sort of this graphite. This goes down into the barrel. You can see the Jacob's thread. So basically less than one turn will raise and lower this valve, but it's pretty loose. And now we have to get this bonnet off, and that's where things can get really interesting. You can see that in the past, people have tried to, with pipe wrenches and so forth, to get it off, but I find it's best to get a socket that fits that. Well, that's where things get really interesting, because this is, as you can see, octagonal, and the only thing that might work would be a 12 point. So I got a 12-point socket to go on that, and it started rounding the edges, and it didn't really go on there. So you really need a bespoke socket. So where does that come from? Well, fortunately, I am the beneficiary of being close to these wonderful folks who are able, let's see if I can get you. They are able to cut out, almost in cookie cutter style with their high jet water table, a socket. So what we have to do is provide them with a workable code so they can load it up into their machine, a G code, and that goes on there like that. So that was a proof of concept. Show up with this and code in a little thumb drive file, and they will punch out something like this, which is where your 1/2-inch socket drive will go, and then they'll punch out, this is, I think you can see the fine serrations on the high pressure water jet, which does a really nice job of punching that out. And they were able to, and you take a, usually I get a piece of standard pipe. This is standard Schedule 40 1.5-inch pipe. So the this end here is where the drive goes. So your 1/2-inch drive, you can see that I've used it. You can see the slight deformation on the around the corners there, and that is the punch out there. And they did a much better job of welding than I did. This is, they tacked it with a beautiful TIG. I went up with my MIG, and I guess I did a passable job. I ground that fairly smooth, and then I got this to be, it was good enough. And yeah, so this goes on here, and get the impact on there, and that comes right off. Works a treat. So it's really, the tighter you can make this, the better this is going to come out and make that work. Unfortunately, what I discovered was that the inner workings here, no surprise that the material is gone usually, but this thing was so worn. That was just a nubbin. There's nothing there. There's nothing there to thread onto. And even worse, I've never seen this before. There's nothing, there's no seat. It's gone. There's where the 3/4-inch thread goes. But wow, this thing has been, when you drop that in there, you can really see what's going. Yeah, it's just gone. Now, how do I know this? Well, we happen to have another one in our petting zoo. This one, again, same thing. Got the nut on top, got the handle, which is on really tight, and we can get that off, and then the nut comes apart. And this is the bezel, the on-off bezel, and this one actually says, it's been polished up, but it says New York Heater and Supply. So again, this is sort of a rebranding. I'll skip the internal, well, no, I'll show you. Maybe this one actually had the packing, which is sort of a graphite whatever mixture, and it's usually, unusually, it's on top, and the spring is pushing up, the spring packing. I've got these measurements here, more or less. I mean, they're 1 3/16, and this is 1 1/4, or 2, or you could say 1 47/64. It's just a weird size, and so this goes on top, and it just as you can see, someone's tried to get it apart. I tried to get it with the 12 point. It was no go. It was pretty beat up. But when you take this apart, this is what it should look like, as opposed to that. I mean, this is your typical red rubber. Well, I don't know what this stuff is. It's asbestos, rubber, mercury, arsenic, and humpback whale juice, or whatever this stuff is. That's been pretty well staked in there, and there's the stem end there, which fits in this Jacob's barrel with the spiral. There's 1, 2, 3 spirals on there, and the best part of all is that there's the seat. You can see the difference, and this is a restrainer cage restrictor. This looks like it came out of the Moline. It's a little loose in here, but I guess that's how this was found. That might work in there. But that's what that goes. So I can now at least, this just needs to be replaced. There's nothing for it, so it's already halfway there. It was good analysis. This one, at least, I can probably send off to Tunstall Tunstall Associates, and they can, I think I've shown in other videos, they can have a sort of rebuild kit which will serve to enable this to so we don't have to take apart the radiator, and it'll be a cost-effective way of rebuilding these valves. The patent date is a little burgered, December, and then of course it's pretty well X'd out. Just to sort of touch on, this is a modern spring style packless valve. As you can see, it's unused. There's the EPDM material in there, and this one's kind of taken out of service because the trouble is with the spring-loaded packing type is they are notorious for locking up. But the spring, instead of being underneath like the Butler Pierce, the spring is on top. Then there is a following washer, and then underneath is the same graphite. And this thing is pretty well locked in place. And the other fun part about it is there's your octagonal bonnet. I did have one made for this, and I usually, that was made with using traditional machining techniques. Let me show you an example here. So if I have, again, octagonal cover, there's your Sarco Preparation H 1/2 inch, and I was confronted with a lot of these to rebuild at the Bromo Seltzer Tower in Baltimore, Maryland. And so I had designed at fairly large expense this was basically milled out, and they welded on a I think it's a 1 inch, I think that looks like a grade 8 bolt for extra toughness, and this fits on there, and it worked. You put that on there, and then you get your socket, and then you get your impact, and that'll take that off. But this was fairly expensive and time-consuming to make, and required a lot of nonsense. So basically, there we are. Much simpler to make. You just punch this out. This is using 2-inch pipe, and 2-inch standard pipe, and fits right on there. And I can make these a lot more, because they within minutes, once you set up the machine, within minutes this is cranked out, and you just have to spend a maybe about an hour welding it up, and maybe another hour. And grinding and paint make you the welder you ain't. So you get these various sockets. This is what they look like before I really hit it with the grinder. That's almost shameful. This is for the Dunham Bush, but this is a variation of the Dunham Bush with a very high neck. So this one, which I designed for other various incarnations of Dunham Bushes, won't fit. So not to worry. I have the cookie cutouts here, and the coupon for this, and plenty of 2-inch pipe, and ready to weld this up to make it work. So I thank you again. I hope this was useful information. Pretty detailed, pretty specialized, but I think with the water table and welding enabling you to make bespoke sockets might be a useful tip for somebody. Thank you again, and stay safe out there.